Welcome again to Math with Faith. This is chapter 2, where we are dealing with measurements, section 2, lesson 2. And this is on circles, right? So remember, we are talking about area and we are talking about perimeter, right? So those are the two measurements that we are going to look at in circles. So the perimeter of a circle is called its circumference. So if you remember what perimeter is the distance around something, right? Perimeter is the distance around something. So the distance around a circle has a special name, and we call that the circumference of a circle, right? And the circumference is measured as C being the circumference is equal to 2 by pi by r, pi being 22 over 7, right? 2 pi by r. R is the radius. So this is a circle. The radius is from the center to the edge of the circumference. That is called the radius, right? And the diameter is the entire half of circle through the center, from one end to the other end through the center. That's the diameter, right? So the radius is half the diameter. So if the circumference is given as 2 pi r, it will be given as pi d, because 2r, or twice the radius, is equal to the diameter, right? So those are two ways. If you're given the diameter, you can calculate the circumference saying pi d, pi by the diameter. And if you're given the radius, you can say you can calculate the circumference by saying 2 pi by the radius, right? And again, as I said, pi is equal to 22 over 7, which is 3.14 and some other numbers, right? So that's 22 over 7 to be exact. Now, I like to use pi as 22 over 7 because in my calculations, unless otherwise stated, this is very important, guys. Use 22 over 7 in your calculations for pi unless they say use pi as 3.14 or 3.141 or whatever. They might give you something to use for pi, use that. If they say use pi as that. But otherwise, do not round off pi. Because when you round off pi, remember all your answers, they might be skewed just a bit because you rounded already. So use 22 over 7. I repeat, use 22 over 7 as your pi in your calculations, right? I can't stress that enough. So that's this perimeter of a circle called its circumference. And the area of a circle A is given by pi multiplied by r squared. Pi r squared. So the square of the radius multiplied by pi gives me my area. So two easy formulas to learn. C is 2 pi r or pi d, and A is equal to pi r squared. So let's take a look at the example. So in the example, it says a circle has a diameter of 30 centimeters. Now, recognize what is being used here. A circle has a diameter. So we are going to use, if we're getting circumference, we're going to use pi d. So a circle has a diameter of 30 centimeters. What is it? What is the A circumference of the pizza? Okay, so this example should say a pizza has a diameter of 30 centimeters. What is the circumference of the pizza and what is the area of the pizza, right? So again, circumference A is equal to pi by d. And pi is, unless otherwise stated, 22 over 7 multiplied by 30 over 1. Right? And when we plug that into the calculator, right, which is 22, nothing can be reduced there. So it's 22 by 30 over 7, right? And we plug that in the calculator. and we get 94.286, and circumference is just a distance around centimeters. Note well, if you get 94.2864, and you say, okay, I'm going to use 3 decimal places, that's 94.286. You'll put your answer as that. But if you get 94.2867, remember, if you're rounding off, every time you round off, look at that number afterward. So your answer will be 94.287 centimeters, because you have to round off that 6, right? You have to round up that 6. So just remember, when you're rounding off in your calculator, once you have you say, okay, I'm going to 3 decimal places or 2 decimal places, as the case may be. In this case, 2 decimal places will be 94.29 centimeters, not 28. You just don't take the numbers like that, make sure and round off properly, right? Look at the number after. Right, that's just an aside. So the circumference is 94.286, and it's just a distance around, and distance is measured in centimeters. So that's our unit. B says, what's the area of the pizza? And we know the area of a circle, the pizza is a circle, is given by pi r squared, right? We didn't have a D version for this, but we know R is half of D. D divided by 2, half of D. So that is 30 divided by 2. So R is 15 centimeters. Therefore, the area is 22 over 7 multiplied by 15 squared. Right? And when we plug that into our calculator, we get that is equal to 707.14. And remember, it's an area, so that will be in units squared. So, and always remember to include your units in your answer. So that's 707.14 centimeters squared for our area. So simple enough, right? And that's how we calculate the perimeter or circumference of a circle and the area of a circle.